What's going on? Welcome to a new episode of She's with the Band. I'm Tori Kravitz, as always, joined by my wonderful co-host, Alicia Atout. How are you, Alicia?
Hello, Tori. I'm doing really well. I feel like we are on a roll. We have had so many cool guests on the show. Life's been good. A little tired, I won't lie to you or people listening and watching. A little sleepy today, but it's been a good day. We're having fun. How are
Yeah.
you?
I mean, we're reaching that point in the year where travel's getting busier, festivals
Yeah.
and shows are getting busier. I can't complain, but I'm definitely feeling it. I mean, I was just in New York last weekend as I'm filming this. So like I was traveling, you were traveling,
Mhm.
and it's wonderful, but it definitely takes a toll, which I suppose makes me have a respect for touring musicians on another level, you know?
So
Like
much. Like we've done our fair share of tours. I've done some wrestling ones, but never to the extent of being on the road for months and months. And so whenever we have people on the show now and they're like, sorry for a little low energy or a little tired, I'm like, I get it, man. I was traveling only for a week and I come back home and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I understand.
I know. I mean, there's a reason I tapped out of touring early, you know? Like I did one tour after Warped Tour, which was just like it was just a country tour. It was like a normal, not Warped Tour situation. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good on that. And I dipped, which like, you know, different strokes, different folks. I'm glad I had the experience and I realized I'm just a homebody and I'm cool with that.
Mhm. That's
So
why
I
we
like
get
that I could
on.
just record this podcast from home and then, you know, sleep in my bed tonight.
Dude, it's all about balance. We'll film like dozens of these from home, then we'll meet up at some festivals, film some stuff, and then we just retract back into our pajamas. Tis life.
Tis life.
Tis life.
And you know what, I had a guest that we recently had on the podcast text me because they were someone I've just known for a very long time, and they said to me like, glad to see you thriving in our elder years. And I was like, excuse me, elder years? But I was like, you're right, like I'm definitely mellowed out from when they met me when I was like 17 and wilding out and like staying out till 2 or 3 in the morning. Like we've come a long way.
I feel like
No,
I've
no Four Locos
always
in tow anytime soon.
I feel like I've always been in my elder years because I was the person where all the bands would be like, oh, let's go to this bar, this whatever, this whatever. And like I'd rarely ever go. I just want to bolt it back home, get in my PJs and like be super happy about who I just spoke with, you know? That was
Yeah.
teenage Alicia anyways. And now I'm almost like reversed in a sense where yes, I'm a homebody and much prefer that. But at the same time, if someone after a gig or a wrestling show is like, hey, let's all hang out, now I have that newfound appreciation for spending time with people and I guess being a little less lazy. I was like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to do anything. So that's changed as well. But you mentioned New York. Tell me about New York
Yeah.
City. What were you up
Dude,
to? I mean, I know, but let's tell everyone listening. I know everything.
well, you know what? I hadn't been to New York since I was maybe 15 or 16 years old, which I know is odd. Like so much of the music industry is there. A lot of people I know are there, but I just don't frequent New York. And I think because I had a subpar experience as a teenager, I mean, it was like a family vacation, you know how it goes. This time around, I was like, wait a second. I really love New York. It is really cool. I actually found, I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, y'all, but I went to a really cool like alternative thrift store and I walked
Oh,
in and my mom was with me and there was like very inappropriate photos on the wall. It was like really loud like Sex Pistols blaring in the speakers and like very
like
strange like
bondage photographs and stuff. Like,
yes.
oh
Yes. And I
man.
walked in and there's like harnesses and weird things everywhere, which I was like all about it, but I had to act like I was, oh no.
Oh,
Ooh,
don't look,
mom, I'm
mama.
sorry. I didn't mean to take you here. So maybe next time I'll just do a solo trip to New York. But I found some really cool discoveries. I loved it and it was great.
I gotta
Yeah.
say, I'm a little offended you said a solo trip and you didn't think about me tagging along. That
Oh no. Of
a
course
little
you can
bit
come with me,
more.
Alicia. I mean, we're like one in the same. So if I do a solo trip, it's like you're basically just like an
That's
extension. You're just
true.
like we're a unit.
That's true. I was in New York the same time you were, man. I had just
That's
come back
right.
from like a really cool trip in Vegas for a couple of days. First vacation I took in 3 years, which was just really nice and needed. So that was great. It was ate way too much food, walked around. It was a really nice chill experience. And I wasn't in the city. I was kind of on the outskirts and it was awesome. So I was so glad that we both got to experience New York in our own little ways. And it was good. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. we both were kind of in our element during our trips. Like we didn't really text too much during that time. So I honestly kind of blanked that we were there literally at the same time.
You can tell when we are just in our own zones and mental spaces because we won't text each other a lot and we won't post to our stories. And that rarely ever happens, dude. Like when you're really that taken out of work, because that's the whole thing, right? But I remember afterwards us texting for like a while, filling each other in on everything. So that was great.
But I do like that we know how to be present, we know how to just connect, and then we know how to come back together and catch up. I feel like that's just super important. But yeah, anyways, this has been quite the tangent, but should we talk about who we're chatting with today? Because I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, so
freaking Escuela Grind.
Escuela Grind, folks. This was a cool one because a lot of the time Tori and I will reach out to people, and this was one that was brought to us by one of our editors here at Knotfest. And he said, this is a group that you need to have on She's with the Band. They make perfect sense. And they obviously do. I mean, they are taking grindcore and death metal to a whole other world. Their shows are crazy inclusive. And I think the thing that we enjoy the most about them is just the research and thought and the intelligence that they are putting behind this brand of metal. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to really the first time where I started to get into music that had a lot of substance and was equally educational and entertaining. And for me, that was Let Live, was the band that did that for me, which similarly very thoughtful. And I don't know, I feel like they expanded my mind when I listened to their music, but in a way that was empowering and exciting. And I feel like Escuela Grind's doing a similar thing where, you know, maybe people who are like a little frustrated with the traditional Escuela will like the Escuela Grind better, you know?
By the way, for those listening, Escuela translates to school, and therefore it's like every time you listen to their music, you're in this fantastic new world of getting schooled in a master class on philosophy, psychology, just how to treat people. Like they have a lot of very unique messages. Social media is something they touch on, which we'll talk about in this interview. But there's a lot of very unique elements to their lyricism along with their music, and that's what makes them very eccentric, cool human beings to have on the show.
Yeah, and just recently toured with Napalm Death as well, which I'm dying to ask him about. They worked with Kurt from Converge. I mean, they've got the cred behind them too. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I say we jump in. What do you say?
Oh, it's rock and roll. I say that every time. Let's go.
Let's go.
Katerina, Chrissy, we are so excited to have you here on the show. So first off, welcome to She's with the Band. And second, I know that you had a crazy few days at South by Southwest. You played the Knotfest showcase. So just run us through what's been going through your minds, all of the busyness, the incredible mayhem. Fill us in.
Cool. Hey, thanks for having us. Sorry if there's like a delay or something. I'm pretty sure we're doing good, but hey, yeah, we literally just got back from Austin, South by Southwest, Knotfest showcase. There was so many awesome bands that are all our friends and amazing and totally different from each other. And it was just so cool to be a part of. So we thank you guys for always being so welcoming to us.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this interview in particular came with high recommendation from Knotfest's editor. They were like, you got to talk to Escuela Grind. We were like, well, that's not even a question. Let's go. So, I mean, just all around the Knotfest team has absolutely loved you all. And I mean, rightfully so. Like what you're doing with grindcore right now is freaking amazing. And from what I've seen, I haven't seen you guys live yet, but seeing the videos from that showcase, I'm like, the next time you are in Florida, I will be there. Mark my words. Maybe with a helmet on, maybe, because it looks a little rowdy, but I'll be there.
Hey.
Make sure you're safe.
Oh, man.
Thanks, guys.
It was so cool seeing those videos pop up and just seeing how involved the crowd is with your shows. It's really amazing. Like they're there to have a fun time. And before we get into everything else you've been up to, like you've shared before how you see many attempts at the Wall of Death, but there are very few bands who get it right. And this Wall of Death that you did had your fans going actually crazy. And in a way, like you're the leaders for the fans when it comes to having a night with you, being at one of your concerts, and you're able to make it a safe space, but at the same time, a gig where people go to have fun. So I guess the first thing we can jump into is with your shows being so inclusive, how do you truly create the perfect Wall of Death?
Great
Ooh,
question.
well, many factors. Um, it's you have to you kind of gotta let people know when to do it, as we've come to figure out, because sometimes you're just like split the room, and then they're like waiting to go, and then at the point you think that they're supposed to go or they will go, they don't go, and then so trial and error is the short answer to that. But
Also a lot of building up, a lot of hype before we even announced the Wall of Death. Our drummer Jesse really likes to lean into getting crowd response, and I think that also really helps to get people really like riled up.
So it is trial and error and like knowing the right cues and when to say the cues. I feel like I never really thought about what goes, like it is an art to a good Wall of Death. Never thought about it that way. I've never been the one to start one.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I've never been one to start one. Kind of terrifies me to be a part of one, but I do enjoy watching a well executed one. So
I
kudos
will
to
say they're
nailing
not
that.
as scary as they look when you're in it. I've been
Really?
in a couple, actually, like pretty sick, pretty fun.
Okay, you're changing my mind here a little bit.
I mean, look, we gotta have a little cred here. So I felt like it was my due diligence. If I'm gonna have a podcast on Knotfest, you got to be in at least a few Wall of Deaths. So we'll get you on the next one, Alicia.
Well, shit, Tori, thanks for laying that out.
I'm just saying, like, this is your rite of passage. We're gonna do it next time we're at a show together.
I think it now has to be one of their shows. Like that's just the perfect fitting for it.
Deal.
Let's go.
But I do want to talk a little bit here about, I mean, I am so fascinated by you all and what you're doing with your music. You know, even just the name Escuela Grind really sets the tone because it means school grind. Y'all are educated, you are well researched, you know, talking about philosophy, architecture, politics, and much more in your music, all while having a great time in a Wall of Death. And, you know, something I have noticed being, you know, on the internet and being a person who's in the public eye is throughout my career, I've noticed people kind of watching your every move, trying to find a reason why you may not be credible or why you may not be worthy of your position. There are people who may be ready to tear you down. So, I mean, not that everyone's like that. You have your fans who love you too. But basically what I think it comes back to is a lot of misogyny or, you know, just the fact that there's a deep-rooted bias with like cis white men running the show for a very long time. So I guess where I'm going with this is, have you felt similar struggles in the fact that you are such a meticulously thought out band and have so much to say? And how do you continuously stand your ground to show that you're credible and to show that you're the talented musicians that you are and be like, no, we deserve to be here and we're here for a reason?
Ooh,
Let's
Kris is our
unpack.
queen. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna turn it over to the queen of clapping back at people on the internet,
Let's
of
go.
which that's Chrissy over there, which is a
Well,
part
yeah,
of it. Not all of it, but
I mean, in part ways, we do a lot of clapping back on Twitter, but in like, I guess, actual venue situations, like, we really like to get to know, like, who's running the show, I guess, and who's doing sound. We try to, be, we try to be, kind of, understanding of that. And I guess really meeting people at the merch tables too, to really talk about our message really helps along the way. Before and after the set, we find that to be really important. And that's honestly where we kind of really get to meet people that haven't really gotten to dive into maybe talking about women's rights, certain things about that. And I think it really helps.
Yeah, so I suppose just walking the walk and not being afraid to look people in the eye and have an educated, thoughtful conversation. That really is probably, I mean, that seems like a great way to go about it.
For sure. It's eye-opening for a lot of people. Young and old people, are coming to our shows, that, might not be exposed to that kind of culture yet.
Have there been any like really memorable moments that you've had in particular in those kind of interactions that have stuck out to you as being moving or just inspiring or have just pushed you forward in your mission?
Oh, Maggie, I'm sure Katerina can respond to that
Yeah, I
one.
see you nodding.
yeah, I mean, all the time we these are both compliments and commentary that's from people that have known us for a long time or just have seen us that night, and like so many people Actually, the thing that really sticks out in my mind, because we just got back from a month-long tour with Napalm Death, who attracts sort of they of course everyone all ages like Napalm Death, but there is like an older crowd that still goes out to all of their shows always. They have a diehard fan base. So a lot of the people we were meeting in these countries that we have been to maybe only once before, or if at all, like lots of dads talking about like getting their daughters into music or what they're into, and like our merch kind of crosses boundaries with like that as well. So a lot of people, um parents of daughters, we like to give shout out to like the transgender people in our community. So lots of parents of transgender children will come up to us afterwards and say thank you, and feel like maybe they can bond with their kid on the things that they like to do too. So that just stuck out to me because we just got back from that tour and there was a lot of that. So I always like when that happens and getting to meet, people that are trying to do right by their kids with this music. With I think everyone wishes that they had if they didn't grow up with that. So
Yeah, and there's never been a more important time for there to be people to show there's a safe space, there's acceptance and there's love, and especially in this music scene, like there's people you could talk to who are on your team,
Mhm.
oh yeah.
huge.
And just kind of touching on what Tori said previously, I really do love the juxtaposition of these incredibly dynamic, just power violence ridden metal songs that have such an introspective and important lesson in each of them. And your research is impressive, especially to humans who research for a living, being us too. So you take just such inspiration from some of the brightest and most fascinating minds, from John Locke to Plato. So when did school and learning become such an obsessive love of yours? And how cool is it now in retrospect to realize you're almost like the teachers now? It's reversed.
Yeah, that's really yeah.
Good question.
It's come full circle with that, which I love that about it. Um, uh, it's we started kind of with these like humble DIY beginnings, so like the school aspect was kind of tongue in cheek in that, we were just doing our thing, and we were going to school at the time, and it had that era, but now it's well, like we're thinking in schools of thought now. We're thinking a little bit more broadly, and being more out there with our music, I guess, physically, because we tour a lot and we go to new places. So I try and incorporate a lot of the stuff that I research into our songs, because if it resonates with me, I hope it resonates with other people. Um, but we also like to have a good time. So the live show is key to what we do, and bringing that aspect, and in any way you want to think about school, or how important the word school or the concept of school is to the band. uh, we 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 try and bring the message, bring the school of life, bring that all bring to a fun environment, and address it that way. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, if school was that cool, I would have loved learning, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wish
Right.
all of my classes were like an
Exactly.
Escuela Grind show. So,
Oh,
That
maybe for some people who don't like school, this is another way of learning and expanding your mind. And
this is the class that you need.
there you go.
Yes. Something too, because you were kind of talking about it was a long road to get to where you are now, of touring full time and being in the position that you're at. I mean, Katerina, I read, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were an architect before going full time in the band. Chrissy, what were you doing before touring full time as well?
Well, I was actually going to school for art before I ended up actually joining the band. So I was kind of in between jobs, working like just a shopping mall job because of COVID and whatnot. So after that, I just tried to make some money screen printing along the way, but it was a hard commitment to begin with. I was kind of scraping the bottom of our wallets for a bit. So
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really admire and respect about both of you, is you had these jobs that were like the societal norm, what you're kind of expected to be doing, going to school, being an architect, which is to the average folk considered like a prestigious job, and to devote your life to full-time touring and playing music is a huge leap of faith. I'd love to hear from both of you what that experience of committing full-time to music taught you about yourself and about risk taking and making that kind of jump. Because I would go through an existential crisis. I don't know about you guys.
It's a huge jump.
It is.
Yeah, no, I personally, I kind of did. I went through a mini crisis. Like there was definitely months of mentally preparing for that, on our end. And so, I mean, it basically was a piss or get off the pot kind of a moment because it was like I physically couldn't sustain working as much as I was working with my job and touring as much as we were getting offers to do and wanting to do. And, also the factor in you don't want to let down your two best friends, and not take all the opportunities that we can do. So it was a difficult decision. I mean, I'm still an architect. I still get to talk about and see the world and write about and perform in ways like versions of architecture in my work with Escuela. So like that's cool. I'm still able to do that and I can always hop back in. So at least I kind of crafted that for myself. So it wasn't as hard of a pill to swallow as I thought, but it was more exciting because I mean, I never thought I would get to this point with any band, music, anything in the arts. And I always like it was always my dream. So to be able to do that is such a blessing and not many people get to experience this. So I'm so grateful that taking the risk was an option for me, one, and I was mentally prepared to do it because it's scary.
Right. And Chrissy,
Yeah,
what
for
was
sure.
that like for you, making that change as well?
Definitely, like whenever we felt uncomfortable, it was really important to remind ourselves like what the chance that we have, to really be out on the road and be able to like sustain ourselves. It was like mentally preparing ourselves for that, and staying comfortable on tour is really like the only way that we stay sane. Especially like living in a van for like 2 months, like can get really tedious. It's not for everyone, it's like something that you have to kind of like come to terms with. It was it's definitely a ride, but then there's other times where we feel really pampered and we feel really grateful. So it's, there's definitely highs and lows through all of it, and we're just riding all of that.
Yeah, I mean, touring with Napalm Death seems like quite the high. What was that experience like? I feel like that might be one of the moments where I feel like, okay, this paid off.
Right. Yeah.
This was a good idea.
For sure.
It was nice kind of having a family on a whole like a nightliner bus. That was a whole new experience for us for sure. And sharing spaces was like very interesting and having our own little bunks. We got a lot more sleep than we normally would, honestly, and we were eating really well, so we can't complain. And they're all really sweet. They're all really sweet people.
That's what we love hearing. You hear all these crazy stories about people being on tour and just things not going well. And it's been really nice throughout these interviews, just hearing that people are out on the road. The headliners are very supportive and kind. And, most of all, you got some sleep and pampering and good food. Like that's why you tour, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when you're out there, it's the little things, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, exactly. They make all the difference between being prepared for a show and not being prepared for a show.
Right.
But we were so lucky on that year. Well, it was more than luck. It was it was just an amazing experience being out there with them, and they have a great reputation. Of course, Napalm Death and Drop Dead, who we were already familiar with, having played with them before here and seeing them a bunch of times. So, but they all have a great reputation of being really good people and easy to get along with and fair and also musically talented. So we went in knowing that we could learn a lot from them and also that we were probably in really good hands. So it was everything, top to bottom. It was great.
That's what we like hearing. Well, Something that's kind of always fascinated me, and I know that we're on the same wavelength here, is philosophy, but also psychology. And especially as we find ourselves in this newfound era of social media. And it's so enticing to kind of see what people post, what they feel is important to share. And in specific, this is the one that gets me, what they think is important to comment on. And you have a song called The Feed where you talk about your unease with social media. So I'd love to hear more about your views on social media now, especially as two incredibly smart femme perspectives within this crazy world of metal, because that's where things can get a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah. The song came from, we wrote all those songs for the album during COVID, so it was kind of really at the height of, the Facebook whistleblower, or like everything we knew that was kind of true about. We already knew it was happening, but to see it like in print as fact wasn't a whole other thing. So like they were written with definitely a really big anxiety to them, and from a place of that. Maybe I don't feel as crazy about it anymore, is only that it's helpful for me to realize that it's a tool. It can be used and it can be ignored, and I come from a time where we got along just fine without it before. And you can pop in whenever you want, and also just like recognizing your bubbles, like recognizing that you're in a bubble when you're in there, and to try and pull yourself out of that bubble when you need to, and put yourself in other chains of thought, and other thoughts than just the same cyclical things that we see all the time. So the feed is definitely something that I struggled with, and algorithms and whatnot, and they also fascinate us. I think all of us have had high conversations where we're talking about AI and then the algorithm and
Oh yeah, the
and whatnot.
multiverse,
So,
the
yes,
dimension,
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, here we go. Let's go.
Yeah, it honestly, it starts to dictate how you post too, like I feel like it's not expected of every band usually, but as us as, femme presenting, performers or musicians, we definitely have a lot of our own personalities in front of us while we are, performing our sorry, performing our on stage. So it definitely dictates a lot how we post, and I know, I guess I've been a little more just like aware of that lately, especially how we use our band page as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said, Katerina, is so important, of like, it is a tool, and especially for being a band with such a strong message. At the same time, like, we want to ignore and filter social media. It's like, it's the necessary evil though, isn't it? A little bit.
But I also love that analogy of it's this bubble, and yeah, we're living in it and you're scrolling through it, but at any point in time you can just pop that sucker and be out of it for a second. I haven't thought of it in that sense. It's like, yeah, you close the app, it is what it is, but that analogy, I get it. See, this is the class we've entered digitally, Tori.
And we're
There we
in.
go.
And we're in. It's just a cool way to think about it, and I hope people who are listening can maybe hear that analogy and realize it's not something that takes precedence in our lives all of the time, and it's a tool. It's not the way that we should be living or basing our values off of. So it's an important thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I
Sure,
think it's fair to say there have been moments where it's defined my reality, or you start to perceive the things that are happening around you through the lens of the social media bubble. But like, it's great to
Yes.
be able to differentiate that. It's huge.
One of the most valuable skills that you can learn as, as a musician, as a person in the public, or whatever, any arts, is to recognize when you're in that cyclical thought, and it's detrimental to yourself. And that's so tied to social media so directly. And it's so important to learn that skill, to be able to go ahead and pull yourself out of it. And once you learn that skill, it makes it a lot easier to implement good things with social media. So that's what I'm trying to do personally, and with the band at least. So it takes time. It's taking time.
Takes
A
time for all of
long
us.
time.
We're in it with you.
Oh, truly.
And a big reason why we wanted to have you on this podcast, which is really focused on inclusion and empowerment for anyone who's femme presenting in the music industry is I know you said in another interview that the entire goal of the band is to promote inclusion and acceptance, and especially when it comes to transgender and non-binary community, people of color, females, queers, and anyone who's underrepresented in the music industry. And I mean, this couldn't basically be a more perfect combination of people to have for this podcast right now. And I know that you specifically mentioned the rampant gatekeeping, invalidation, dismissal, which tends to happen on social media and is present in the grindcore scene. So we're full circle, baby. But really, I would love to hear your insight, because I think something big is thinking about the doable yet effective steps that anyone who's at a gig or works in the industry, wherever you're at in your involvement in music, that we could take to just be more inclusive and be more just loving and accepting to anyone who wants to be a part of it. Whoever wants to take it, or both of you, one at a time. I don't know.
Oh, it's a very important and big question. So my fried brain is turning it over. However, yeah, I mean, so I was doing another podcast earlier this morning, and I talked a lot about community in that in a different way, but community it affects a lot about how we go about what we do, and as people with the band and whatnot. So, I mean, there's no one answer for how we be inclusive. Every community is different. Every community has different problems, and I wish that I could give guidance to that. And we come from, you know, our own perspective, being a band that comes from a area where there's not many other bands around, and our sense of community is a little bit different than those. But I guess the best thing that we can do from our position where we are as musicians, we always like to, during our set, take the time to give shout outs, to make people actually feel included with those words. Like, no, you know, there's no metaphor about it. It's you are welcome, you are accepted. And I found that just being direct like that is probably the best thing that can happen, because some people who I know are really, really shy afterwards will come up and speak with us about, you know, whatever it is that's on their mind, or whatever it is about their community that they need help with, you know, or just someone to listen to. So I don't know. It's from our perspective, that's been the most positive, and we've seen the best results by just being direct and inclusive in that way. But I don't know, Christy, maybe you have something else to add.
I definitely think the type of shows that we play kind of dictate how our message gets across. And you know, when we're playing with bands like Napalm Death and Drop Dead, who are, you know, obviously are very with the times and very progressive and talking about women's rights on stage, we obviously make good picks for like who we end up playing with. And it definitely shows that we play to like different people that you know, different demographics, where I feel, you know, sometimes it might be, you know, being a dead horse, because there's so much inclusion in certain areas in the US.
Right.
Certain places that we play in Europe, you know, we really have to be, you know, we really have to hit them on the head with it. And I think it definitely it comes forward in our performance to those types of crowds in, let's say, like Eastern Germany or something like that. And when we play in, you know, let's say Austin, Texas, where, you know, they're keeping it weird over there, you know, it's you know, it's very welcomed. So reacting to certain crowds while on stage and seeing that is you know, it's kind of interesting seeing the certain demographics and how that works.
Fully. I mean, something too that I think about, because I don't know why, like when I asked that question, I had such a flashback to when I was a kid going to shows, and the moments early on as a fan where I was like, wow, this is a community. I feel welcome here. I'm standing in line for 8 hours for a band I love, and I just made 10 new friends. Moments like that where I started to feel a sense of inclusion. Are there any memories that stick out to you both as early fans of music that made you feel that sense of community as well? Throwing it back.
lots of different varieties of that.
Yeah, it goes a lot of ways. Like
I
attending
think
and, even like doing our own shows, where we really get to experience different communities.
I think for me, when I was young, where I specifically live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, it's like a very small community. I went to a middle and high school, so it was 7 years of kids. My graduating class was like 55 people. Basically, one other person liked the same music like that I liked, kind of. So going to shows was like a attempt to find community because I knew that I liked that music and that I would probably like the other people that liked that music. So and back then it was a little bit different. So I don't know, shows were very daunting for me back then, and sometimes I hesitate talking like this because not everyone experienced the same feelings I had. So I could say like, I was scared to go to shows by myself, like it was awkward, it was some people were creepy, like it was totally different. Like other people can say, "What are you talking about?" It was like totally not like that, and you're wrong, like whatever. Like so I get that there's
Your
probably different
experience is your
readings of the same.
experience.
That's
So
exactly
what,
it.
yeah, what you felt is what you felt, and that's valid too. I don't think I ever went to shows completely alone because I probably would have felt the same way.
Yeah, I think
So
I've
like
even to this day, I've maybe gone to 2 solo, and even those were daunting at an older
Yeah.
age where the community is now, I don't wanna say thriving, because we still have a lot of work to do, but so much better than what it was back then, let's say 10, 15 years ago. So I know exactly where
sure.
you're coming from, and anyone who's out there saying, "No, that's ridiculous," they don't know your experience, they weren't there. So that's ridiculous on their ends, but, appreciate you opening up about it because I do understand what you mean. Sometimes it's hard to share that because you're afraid of what someone might think that's completely outlandish. So
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That's nice. But I mean, eventually you find it in pockets, and it's it was back then it was a whole different way of accessing and engaging with music, and now I love how accessible and open it is, and how many different mixed genre bills there are, and how much stuff like I mean the Knotfest showcase that we just played in Austin was really it was totally a mixed bill, and it was awesome, and if one person wandered in for just one band, they would be exposed to, five completely different bands. And that was something that probably would have gone a long way, at least for me when I was younger, if that was something that I had access to. And then in building community, because you can just see all different types of people all at once within the subgenres. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking back to like the early days of your music discovery experience, and I know Converge was a big one for you, Katerina. I
Yeah.
don't know. What about you, Chrissy? Were you into Converge too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah.
People from my high school, I'm from upstate New York, even they listen to Converge, so.
So it's really wild that you worked with Kurt Ballou. When I read that, I was like, "Oh shit, I have to ask." I
Yeah.
mean, what did you learn from that experience? And honestly, just was it as brilliant as I imagined in my head?
and were you in
Well,
awe the
this
whole time?
Me too.
this is a Chrissy question in all of its entirety, as she had to record all the guitar parts, all the bass parts, and with Kurt just staring down right at her.
Yeah,
So
20,
And you
27, I
actually
think
could play.
27 tracks with Kurt Ballou. It was insane.
Wow.
It
So
was
how did you manage
honestly,
that?
we
I would have been like
well,
shaking in my boots.
since we had 2 years of doing nothing during COVID and not playing shows, we just did a lot of rehearsing the songs and demoing. I think we did maybe 3 demos. And Jesse recorded all of those, and I think that really helps prepare me. I was very focused on just getting my picking right and just being like up to my own standards, I guess, in playing. And it was just really the process of how easy he made it for us, and while also trying new things and new sounds. Um, Honestly, put us on to a lot of new ideas and different and methods that we use today. Honestly, I use a lot of the amps that he's recommended. Just because I just like the sound. I just like how he made us sound. He made us sound really great. Like too good.
I would agree.
Yeah, he's such an easygoing dude too. Like, you know, it's very daunting working with people that you respect and they have known in that way for such a long time. And well, one thing that helped is that we got to play with them in Providence at this very small venue, AS220. So we had already kind of gone through the like moments and we've been in correspondence since then. So like that was if I had to go in like cold, didn't know the guy, didn't know, like that would be a whole different story. But yeah, he's just so easygoing and fun to be around and like just a great guy to work with. Like it's just the easiest experience in terms of how easy it is to get along with him and to get stuff done too. So I don't know. I don't even know if we can say, but like we intend to work with him again. So that I hope that
We're
the
putting it
fans
out there.
enjoy. Yes.
So
I
does that
love that
mean
you-
new Escuela Grind?
Hey. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure.
Ooh,
We're
awesome.
writing. We're always writing. Touring, always writing, always trying to keep going.
always grinding.
Always grinding. How did
I was
I
waiting
set
for
it
it.
up and I
The
didn't
school
even
of grind.
Had to be
Escuela is
said.
grinding.
Well, at this point in the show, we always love going into our jaw-dropping segment, where we just ask you a bunch of different things about your career and the jaw-dropping experiences that went along with those. So your answers can be as long or short as you want. You can treat it as a quick fire if you fancy. But the first one would be, what is the most jaw-dropping experience you've ever had at a show? And this could be one of your shows or one that you went to and attended as a fan.
Oh wow.
jaw dropping. Okay.
It's so hard.
I don't know. For the first thing that came to mind, which is usually like your gut, right, is for us when we played Obscene Extreme. For me, like it's pretty okay. So we all of us in the band had like seen videos of Obscene Extreme for years and years and years and always wanted to go, let alone play is a whole other experience. And on top of that, we had to wait 2 years because we got booked for 2020 and it got postponed twice, right? So it's equal parts of like watching videos of this festival for years and hyping it up so much in your mind to getting there, having it be like the best run festival. Like it was insanely well run. Like the people were awesome, the food was amazing, vegan food, and like everything was so smooth, and all the bands were top. Like, and then to have like the experience of the POV being switched, it's like I'm in the YouTube videos that I watch and I'm looking out at the crowd and they're looking at me and they're looking at me through the YouTube video. Like it was, I don't know. It was
Full
definitely a jaw-dropping
circle.
experience. Yeah, it was, and it was, I think we could all recognize that it was probably a turning point for the band, um, in that it was really well attended for being in the afternoon and everyone was going off and the dancing was hilarious and we were having a good time and it just everything aligned. So it was, yeah.
And Chrissy, would that be yours as well, or did you experience something else that came to mind?
It's really hard because we had a couple reels that we really loved that we posted on Instagram. But I think one of my favorites was one show that we played in Salem, Massachusetts. We played the town hall. And it was like a really large room that we were attending. And this kid started swinging around this guy that he barely knew. And someone caught it on video, but we ended up calling him Lawnmower Man because the way that he's swinging this guy by the legs across the floor. And I think they became best buds after that too. The way they hugged each other after and started moshing was just like a very wholesome
Wow.
moment. I'm gonna remember that one forever.
Lawnmower Man. That's
I
great.
would, I wish I could put a QR code or something right here so you could just watch it right now. Like it's amazing.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh. And the next one that we have here, and again, you two may have different ones, but the most jaw-dropping misstep early in your career and the lesson that you learned from it. We're going back to the Escuela Grind. We want to learn something.
Okay. So Jesse and I are the original members in the band. So I can take it back all the way to the beginning. Biggest misstep ever made with the band uh is, I guess I could only speak for myself, so but like it's kind of a cop out answer, but like I used to really give a lot of fucks about what other cool people I perceive to be cool, whatever, like loud tastemakers, haters, complainers, whatever. I used to really put a lot of stock in what they had to say, and I changed the way I performed for that. So I let that affect what we were doing as a band, and it was a total misstep because it wasn't true to what we wanted to do, what I wanted to do with the band, and it just got me nowhere. Like those people aren't my friends. Those people are not anything I would remotely put stock in these days. So just don't get outside your vision. Really, it's be true to what you intend to do, and don't let others sway you from that, within reason. If someone's like being genuinely cool and trying to help you out, I mean, there's nuance to that, but yeah,
Yes.
that was
Always
the
do
biggest
it for
misstep.
yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, authenticity. The audience knows it, you know it, and it makes such a huge difference.
For sure.
And Chrissy, how about you?
Well, when it comes to, pushing ourselves as musicians, I feel like over the last couple of years, I think we've all kind of, evolved in certain aspects as what we would call ourselves a grindcore band, or even, venturing into the death metal and hardcore elements. And I guess we kind of just like embracing a new way of songwriting was kind of what we tried to focus on during the Memory Theater album. We wanted to put a lot of our interests like in new metal and whatnot, and we were trying to avoid trying to appease certain crowds, in grindcore, the certain, so-called gatekeepers, if you will. And I think when it came to taking the time to really revise what we wanted, or how we wanted the crowd to feel when we played these songs, was I guess that was a really big milestone for us. And I think we're taking it farther too, I think conventionally as a grindcore band and modernly. And also growing as a musician too, as a guitarist, it's been a journey. So I think just learning from other people on tour, other great musicians, is kind of the next step and how we keep growing.
It's so cool to hear that you take so much from the fans in the crowd, from working with other bands, from the other groups on tour. Like you can tell that you really are just trying to soak stuff in, and just seeing how much Chrissy lights up every single time you're mentioning learning something new with your guitar, taking these little tidbits for your amps. Like you can tell how much you just want to continue to grow. It's cool seeing people who aren't just content within their art form, and they always want to keep elevating. So that makes us very excited to see what you've been working on, by the way.
Always.
Hell yeah.
We'll be
Oh,
watching,
definitely.
is all I'm saying.
Very
Oh.
cool.
Yeah, we got oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, we can't wait either. Trust us.
Ah.
But for the next one, the most jaw-dropping female artist that you would eventually love to work with, who would that be?
Oh, Kitty just followed us on Instagram recently. Shout out
I was
Kitty.
like, do I say it? Shout out Kitty.
Nice.
That would be
That'd be awesome.
outrageous.
Yeah.
They're badass.
Please.
Let's see. Female artists to work with, period. Gosh, a lot of, I mean, I guess we mostly aren't touring so much now. We basically think like our one track mind is like, who would be fun to tour with, So like all these answers are gonna be like, who do we want to tour with? And so there's a band touring through the States right now with Morbid Angel, and this band Vitriol that we played with on tour with the Exhumed last year. And they're an all-female death metal band from Brazil called Crypta. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners already are familiar with them, but if not, they're great. I fucking love them. They're great to watch. They're very present online too, so it's like you feel like you know them because they share a lot with you online. So and I just saw a little tidbit of their show from Austin online when I was looking before we started recording, and it looks like it's going really badass. So I'd love to tour with them, work with them, just hang out with them. Let's see. I wanna plug a bunch of people. Uh, Chrissy, you go, and then I'll get my list going in my mind.
Oh, there's wow, that's yeah. There's I mean I feel like there's a lot of bands that we love to play with. There's a really popular band that's actually coming to play soon in our area called Scow. They're like I'm
Oh,
sure you've heard of Scow. We love to
I
do
love
shows with them.
them.
Honestly, they just have a certain aesthetic, that they're bringing right now to hardcore. That
yes.
that is adjacent to kind of what we want to do with grindcore. Uh, and I
Really.
don't know more
I
bands.
think
I'm
we
gonna
need
see
to
if I
get
can
all
type
of these
in here.
bands on a tour package with like Kitty
Yeah,
headlining and then just call it a
yeah.
day. Like my
You're
dream
right.
tour is
Yeah, I mean
happening and that's it.
Hell yeah.
No, that's
Um,
I
quite the
mean,
list.
yeah, just and in general, I think it would be really cool to work with other artists that aren't necessarily heavy artists. It was always something that I wanted to float around. It's like getting like a remix album or something done or something like that. I love when bands do that. So like to work with other artists, maybe rappers, maybe electronic artists, maybe DJs. I don't know, something like that. I think that would be fun. Um, and there's so many people we know that are so talented but don't play aggressive music that it would be fun to include them in what we do if maybe we can ever tour together or something like that. So
I mean, if there's ever been a time for genre to not have boundaries, it's now. I mean, when we interviewed Scabble, she said Lana Del Rey was someone she wanted to work with. So
Yeah.
you know
let's
what?
go.
Who's to say?
That's
Who's to say?
amazing.
Anything's possible. Our last one here is the most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood. Could be about you or about the band, however you want to take it.
I love how
Hmm.
Katerina's eyes lit up when this question was brought up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I try and stay clear of knowing any of the misconceptions as I don't want that to affect how I am, and I'm like a worrier, so I dwell on stuff.
That's
Um
You
fair.
and me both. I mean, if it's not a misconception, maybe it's just something you want to make super clear about who you are as a band that you don't want there to be a misconception about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess okay. So there's a misconception, I guess. I mean, and this happens to any band that comes out of DIY that kind of starts to tour more and goes full time with it, and it's like the misconception of, oh, this was given to you for some reason because I don't have it. It was given to you, and we've certainly worked our asses off for it. Um, and we're so grateful for all the people that helped us along the way too, and it's actually really diminishing towards them when people act that way about music, because there's so many people that go into you know making a band what a band is. It's not just the musicians, it's not just management, it's not just it's everyone involved in putting on this show and producing this music. And so I think that is a common misconception with many bands. It's certainly a common misconception with bands with presenting members and whatnot. And we can obviously talk about why that is forever. But I mean, um, so yeah, it's an ugly misconception, and I reject it. And I think that if we stop working for what we have, and we as in everyone in general, then it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's you have to have passion for it, and you have to push, if not physically, then emotionally push your boundaries, and keep creating, and keep being, and keep pushing yourself, because the best things happen when you do that, I think. And the most uh, lasting and important art happens when you do that. So that's my answer.
Preach.
I mean, that's the thing, is people don't necessarily see all the hard work that happens because that's not what is being presented on social media. That's not what's being presented to the public. They don't see that.
Mhm.
So it's easy for that misconception to happen. And it's a really important reminder because all of us
Yeah.
have worked our asses off. Everyone in this little Zoom meeting right now, I know it. And I'm proud of us. Look at us go. So
Aw.
yeah, you've
Pat,
earned your place.
pat ourselves on the back. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Go
there it
team.
is.
I love that you brought that up because I know how much we relate. I mean, I'm in two industries right now, heavily being music and then wrestling. And in music, I've been crafting my name for like a decade now, just like how Tori has been. And then when I went from the music industry into wrestling, there were so many people who had no idea that I had been interviewing for so long. And so as soon as you're in this new world, they're like, how did she go from here to here like that? Or what happened? And you just get judged so heavily for no reason. And they don't see, and again, no pun intended, but like they don't see the grind and the hustle and all of the work that you've put in. So I love that you brought that up. I love that you're standing your ground. I love that that last question almost went from a I'm not sure where to take it to like a screw you. We've done and paid our dues and we've earned it, because you can tell that you definitely have.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you also brought up that this is especially common with someone who's femme presenting. I know that for fact, as we know. So, that's why we have this podcast, is to highlight the work that has gone into what you do, to present who you are in the music that you create and show it with pride, because they're just these kind of conversations need to happen. They need to be happening to show who you are. So thank you for being here. Honestly, it's been so wonderful talking to you both, and I'm so excited to see what you do next, including your future work with Kurt that I look forward to.
Yes.
Aw, thank you. Thank you both so much. It's really kind of you to say.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, to both Katerina and Chrissy from Escuela Grind, we would like to say thank you so much for taking the time. And of course, to everybody watching, don't forget to follow us on social media at Tori and Alicia, and check out new episodes which air every single Monday on notfest.com. On behalf of my co-host Tori Kravitz, I've been Alicia Atout, and we will see you next week right here on She's With the Band. Bye, everybody.